phone and call Derrick Henry, you lost me. You can't be all in. To say we're going to be selectively aggressive means we're going to be choosy about what we decide to do. And if that means not doing much, then we've already put it out there for you. I actually really appreciate this and love this slogan from them because it's more aligned with the truth. It's more aligned with reality.
We haven't heard much out of the Jones family over the last couple of weeks. I don't believe there was a single interview done at the Combine with Jerry, right? If I'm not mistaken. And they've been awfully quiet after the big selectively aggressive comments. And we just talked about in the CC Power Rankings, the top 5 teams that have to get it right. The Cowboys were on that list. But CC, they were different than any other team. New England, you were talking about adding. Chicago, you were talking about adding. Cincinnati, even if it's their own guys or how they would add their own guys, is an adding conversation. Washington, they've already added Debo. The Cowboys were different. The Cowboys better get it right. Selectively aggressive is subtracting. Explain what you meant by that.
Well, in terms of how they've built that team, they're top heavy, Ev, and they have a lot of areas of need in terms of being able to improve, right? Tank Lawrence is a free agent. Eric Kendricks is a free agent. Jordan Lewis is a free agent. Osa Odigizua, they just tagged him, but he had a pending free agency. But you're talking about 3 guys that are core players on the defensive side of the ball that are going to walk into free agency unencumbered. And if you don't resign them, you're going to have to replace them. And then, oh, by the way, we already had issues on the offensive line, and a Hall of Famer, first ballot player in Zach Martin just retired. So how are you going to fill all of these areas of need? How are you going to get all of these difference makers that you need on both sides of the ball if you continue to only give, the contracts to the guys that are at the top of the market, the top 3 or 4 players on the squad? It just doesn't make sense in terms of the exercise when it goes to roster building and putting together a team that can actually contend.
Yeah, I don't think they can, which is why I think they laid the groundwork with that line, selectively aggressive. Because if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, you are looking at the Eagles who just won the Super Bowl. You're looking at the Commanders who are in the Final Four and who have already made moves and we know are gearing up to make more. And you are outlining to the fan base that you're not going to be as aggressive. You're going to pick and choose your spots. And I'm sure that's not what Cowboys fans want to hear, but at least it's better than what they did last year by saying they're all in and then doing virtually nothing. But I guess that's why, and again, CC, we talked about this last segment and you explained yourself, but I don't have any expectations for the Dallas Cowboys this season. Even if they were going out there and acquiring all these pieces, we talk about the culture there. We talk about the lack of team first identity there. And I know it's a new regime with Brian Schottenheimer, but do we expect it to really be any different this season or to make a material difference, at least this season? Not really for me. So my expectation level is pretty low when it comes to what the Dallas Cowboys are going to produce this year.
Can we name names on subtracting? So Chris Canty is in charge of the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones says, hey, we need a former player to come in here from our squad who understands the way we operate. Canty is a Virginia grad. He's on TV and radio every single day. This guy knows what he's doing. Let's have him come in to go and run our team. And you're walking in there, CC, and you're saying, Jerry, I understand you want to be all in previously, selectively aggressive. It's time to be all out. It's time to subtract.
Before I get to the names that I'm going to subtract, Ev, I do want to mention this. When it comes to the Cowboys issue, the problem with how they've managed their cap is that they pay players too late as opposed to paying players early. So I just outlined the guys that are going to be free agents this season. But then the following year, you have a lot of core guys that are going to be free agents. Players like Kevontae Turpin, who's an all-pro returner. Tyler Smith, your best offensive lineman. Jake Ferguson, your tight end. All-pro cornerback Deron Bland. So if the Cowboys are going to try to take care of business and do things differently, it should start by being able to try to retain the guys in that free agent class in 2026 that you want to keep around long term. So there's that aspect of it too. It's not just trying to keep guys this year, but it's making sure that the guys that will be free agents next year have contracts that are below top of the market because you still have a year of team control. So there's that. But when it comes to the first player that I would be interested in trading away from that franchise, it'd be Micah Parsons. It'd be the pass rusher. And I get it. When it comes to all the pass rush metrics, this guy is top 5 since he's come into the league. He's number 1 in pressures since he was drafted into the NFL. He's an absolute game record, phenomenal talent. But your defense was absolutely awful last year. You had the worst defense in the league with Micah Parsons on the field more often than not. The guy played in 13 games. So your defense was terrible with him. If your defense ain't winning with him, we cannot win without him too. And I guess my whole point is I don't see a path to where you pay Micah Parsons top of the market money, along with franchise tagging Odigizua, along with paying Dak $60 million, along with paying CeeDee Lamb $34 million, where the Cowboys can fortify their roster, both sides of the ball, and be competitive. I don't see a world where that can happen. Remember, people said that the Cincinnati Bengals can't pay all of the players that are looking for new contracts there. That's what everybody is saying. Why aren't we applying that same logic to the Dallas Cowboys?
In your scenario, do you care where you trade him?
Oh, I want him out of the division and out of the conference.
Okay. I asked that for a reason, because if we're thinking about the Myles Garrett market, and not that Parsons and Garrett are the same positionally, but they're not so far off, right? All we hear about is Washington and Philly, right? And the potential bidding war for Myles Garrett. I don't think the Cowboys would trade him in division, but I don't think if they're going to truly rebuild, they should actually care where they trade him. They should just get the most amount as you possibly can get. And if you have to trade him to Philly, trade him to Philly. Who cares?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't care. I'm not winning anyway. By the time I win, he's going to be on the downside of his career. I don't actually this is where you have the strong organization that has confidence in what they're doing, and the amazing thing is their GM is unfireable.
Right.
And Dallas shouldn't care where you trade him. They should just, in the CC scenario of selectively aggressive, should be selectively aggressive as to who to subtract. I don't believe you should care where you trade Michael Parsons in that hypothetical. If Philly wants to give you 3 first-rounders and a couple of their, and Jordan Davis, a young defensive lineman, who I'm not saying they can afford to spare, but maybe they can afford to spare, I'm doing it. I don't care. I'm not going to be good anyway. If I'm subtracting, I'm not worrying about being good now. I'm worrying about being dominant later.
But that's not the mindset of the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, I know.
That's the problem.
I know. But that's why I asked the question.
And it's hard to trade a player like that in the division when a division rival in the New York Giants let Saquon Barkley go to the Eagles in free agency and essentially gift wrap the championship to him.
Great point.
Right. But if you also believe that Parsons in this hypothetical is not a culture plus, there's also an argument that you think maybe he'd hurt the culture of that.
Well,
franchise.
I don't think they already have a culture in place in Philadelphia. Dallas doesn't have one.
Understood.
They're devoid of culture. They're devoid of an identity, which is why I don't think it makes sense to continue to pay players top of the market money when you don't have an identity as a football team.